Welcome. Are we live? I think we're live. It is the Draft Lottery Watch Along here on the Flames Nation YouTube channel. My name is Mike Gould. That is Ryan Pike. And what you are watching right now is not just a show intended to celebrate one of the biggest days on the hockey calendar every year, but it is also the start of something new here at Flames Nation, which is a little show about Flames prospects, the whatever, whether you want to call it a reboot, rebuild, retool, whatnot. It is called The Back Burner. It is the show on Calgary Flames prospects. And today, Ryan Pike, is one of the biggest days for Flames prospects there is, because the Flames have, a 1.1% chance at landing somebody at number 6 overall and a 98.9% chance of giving up pick number 16 overall in the 25 draft lottery.
It's a 0.5% chance on two separate draws. So whatever the math is, it ain't good.
It ends up being 1.1. I think that they win either draw, but it's not great. So that's what today is. It is the draft lottery, and welcome. Thanks for joining us. Pike, first and foremost, how excited are you? Are you feeling the excitement, not just for the lottery itself, but the new format? It's going to be so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be nice to sort of have a more dedicated space on the channel for some prospect talk. You'll still see many of us waxing poetic about prospect content throughout throughout the other shows, but this will be a place for folks to get downright nerdy about the folks that aren't quite NHLers yet. There's no shortage of stuff to talk about, Mike.
There certainly isn't, and we'll get to some of the big topics later on in the show. Of course, all sorts of things happening, whether we're talking about Luke Misa going to Penn State or Valtteri Ignatieff leaving the American Hockey League and going back overseas. But first and foremost, Pike, it is draft lottery time, and we should really explain what's going to happen, because it's going to look a little bit different than what we've grown accustomed to for the last, I don't know what it's been, 15 years or so. It's been the whole telethon.
So the first lottery was held in 1995, coming out of 3 lockouts ago.
I think like 2 lockouts ago. 3 lockouts and a work stoppage. I think there was a strike in there too.
No, the strike was in 93. So the 95 CBA, part of the thing was they're like, let's add a draft lottery to the mix. And so traditionally it has been held in a windowless room in the NHL/MLB studios in Secaucus, New Jersey. If you've never been to Secaucus, New Jersey, don't go. There's not a lot to see there. There's not a lot of Secaucus. Bless your heart, Secaucus, New Jersey. You do your best.
You'll probably see Kevin Weeks somewhere.
Traditionally, and usually see this, I know the folks at the Athletic have attended the draw in the past. Typically, it's some folks from Ernst & Young and a couple people from the NHL and a neutral observer and a couple media people who are under embargo and they can't go anywhere or tell anyone anything. And then, Gary Bettman and Bill Daly just drawing ping pong balls. And it's been held sort of clandestine. There's witnesses. I don't think anyone ever accused them of anything untoward. But, it was kind of odd that such a interesting event, something so consequential, was held kind of cloak and dagger. So now they're bringing it out of the shadows and turning it into a televised event before the Leafs game. And so, we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be a fun hour.
So basically what Pike is saying is, we've become so accustomed to seeing Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner of the NHL, sort of flipping over those cards one by one, counting down from 16th to 1st. And we all remember when the Edmonton Oilers won the draft lottery all those times back in the early 2010s, and the winning team has the logo on their card and it's gold. And that's not going to happen this year. We're not going to see that. We are going to see the actual draw, the draws take place. And the only teams that we're really going to see anything about are the teams that win. And so we're going to see the actual process of the balls going into the hopper, them coming out. There's only going to be, I think 13 balls. It's going to be like the M&Ms on 14. My sweater. They're just 14 balls. They're going to pop in. And the Flames only have 5 combinations that could possibly win them out of a total of 1,001. So their odds are the worst of anybody in this draft lottery. They finished with the best record of any team not to make the playoffs. These are the odds right here. The Flames and the Canucks jointly have the worst odds. And those asterisks that you see beside the Flames, well, that is a consequence of the most convoluted trade in NHL history, the trade that they made with the Montreal Canadiens 3 summers ago, in which they let go of Sean Monahan to free up the cap space to sign Nazem Kadri. So if the Flames win the draft lottery today, either of the draws, they will keep their own first-round pick in the 25 draft, and they will give Florida's pick to Montreal as part of that condition. Otherwise, if they lose, which, let's face it, they probably will, not just because of their poor odds, but because they have never won the draft lottery, and they probably never will. But if they do not win, they will give away pick number 16 to the Montreal Canadiens, and they will keep the Florida Panthers pick, which, if Florida wins their upcoming second-round playoff series, will end up being anywhere between 29 and 32. And if the Florida Panthers lose, it will be pick 22, I believe. So, you know, the best case scenario is obviously the Flames win the draft lottery, and it's about to start right now. John Bucci-Gross is on our TV. The mid-case scenario is they lose, but then Florida loses the next round, and their pick ends up only going down 4, 5, or 6 spots. And the worst-case scenario is they lose, and then Florida wins their next round, and the Flames end up with a pick in the bottom 4. Pike, did you follow all that? Sort of, a little bit, sort of?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be kind of interesting. And we're told that on the broadcast, they're going to have live odds changing as balls are selected. So obviously, you know, there's a 1 in 14 chance in every ball that's pulled out, and the odds will obviously change of what's left. But apparently they're going to be tracking the combinations. As Mike mentioned, there's only 5 combinations that can result in the Flames
Jack, do we have those?
10 spots. So we'll see what happens.
These are them. So
and, there's the 5 numerical combinations, and there's not a lot of numbers in common here.
No. I mean, if anything with a 7 gets drawn, you're done right away. I mean, so there's John Bucci-Gross on our TVs right now, and we encourage you to watch along with us. Kevin Weeks is now up there as they're going to start to do the draws. The first draw that we see will be the draw for the first overall pick. And they have the 16 representatives from the 16 teams. They're up there on the screen. Hi, Craig Conroy's on the TV, and he's throwing his hands up in some sort of celebration. Maybe he already knows something. But yeah, interesting not to see Lou Lamoriello there with the New York Islanders obviously moving on from him as their general manager. A few watch parties. Obviously, we should talk about some of the teams with the top odds. The San Jose Sharks are favored to win the draft lottery, although there's no such thing as being favored to win this. 18.5% is your reward for finishing last.
The top 2 teams, I guess the bottom 2 teams, depending on your perspective, San Jose and Chicago last year had the 1 and 2 odds, and this year they have the 1 and 2 odds. So the more things change, Mike, the more they stay the same.
Something to be said for that, isn't there? Wouldn't it be an embarrassment of riches for the San Jose Sharks to add whomever the number 1 pick is this year to a group that already includes Max Celebrini and William Eklund and Will Smith, Quentin Musty? I mean, the list goes on and on. The Sharks have an absolutely stacked group, and it's amazing to imagine what a defenseman like Matthew Schaefer, who is the consensus number 1 overall pick potentially, would do to that group. I mean, they already have Sam Dickinson. I mean, goodness me.
The Ontario Hockey League did a tweet this morning after a few different rankings came out. Our friends of The Athletic, both Misters Proneman and Wheeler, updated their draft rankings. Our dear friend Stephen Ellis at Daily Faceoff has his rankings fairly recently updated before the U18s. Cheap plug for Stephen. He just did 120 player profiles coming out of the U18. So if you want to learn way too much in a hurry, go to Daily Faceoff and check out Stephen's profiles. But pretty much across the board, Matthew Schaefer is the number 1 consensus pick. And it's going to be, after that, there's going to be a bit of chaos, and we'll see who ends up selecting 1 and so on. But it's going to be a weird draft year this year.
Well, and Pike, I'm going to beat you to the punch here. How about a Mike bomb here on this Monday, May the 5th? The Calder Trophy finalists have just been announced. Pike, you were hinting at it off mic that we would probably see it on this broadcast, but it is Dustin Wolf being named a finalist for the Calder Memorial Trophy alongside Max Celebrini and Lane Hutson. Hutson, of course, the front runner to win, but Wolf, I mean, he certainly piled up the accolades. And Pike, you made an interesting comment to me recently, talking about how, the wording of the Calder Trophy, how exactly it is adjudged, wherein if you were talking about the most outstanding rookie, you might say, okay, this is Lane Hutson. But if you're talking about the most valuable rookie, it might be Dustin Wolf. But how is the Calder Trophy sort of different from maybe what you might expect?
It's the rookie who is the most proficient in their first year of competition. So most proficient it's the definition. It's not, I would say most proficient is a synonym for outstanding, but it's not most valuable. It's not anything like that. So, it's disclosure. I was a voter. I had all three of these gentlemen on my ballot. I won't spoil the order. But yeah, this is I think a really, really exciting year as a voter, because you just look at this trio. It's, you have an outstanding rookie goaltender, an outstanding defenseman, and an outstanding forward. All these positions have their quirks and make them extremely challenging to play at a high level as a first-year player. And, I think whoever wins, I think we're going to see some really interesting ballots coming out of this, because you could make a case for any one of these three guys to be number one on your ballot. And I think it's defensible. And a lot of years last year, I think it was maybe a 2-horse race. This year, I think it was much more chaotic than that.
Well, yeah, no doubt. It's an impressive trio. It harkens back to, the year that Johnny was nominated. That was an impressive trio as well. Obviously, no goaltender in the mix there, but just three players who went on to be NHL All-Stars, and Ekblad, Stone, and Johnny. And it's hard to think of a better trio than this one currently in recent years. I don't certainly remember the last time that there was a forward, a defenseman, and a goalie who were all so proficient, who in any other year I think would have had a clear-cut case to win this award. And so just incredible on Wolf's part, being the first Flames nominee for the Calder since Johnny back 10 years ago, or finalist for the Calder. So certainly going to be a one to watch. My gut feeling is that Wolf probably ends up finishing second in voting. I think Hudson's got it in the bag just because, he had a record-breaking season and he will get a lot of respect from out east. But I think Wolf will end up being first on a lot of ballots too. And I think it'll be a very equitable distribution when everything is said and done. Speaking of interesting trios, Sam Cosentino on Sportsnet, on Sportsnet of the NHL Network studios, interviewing three prospective number one picks right now. Interesting to see that. We usually only see one, but this year, since there's no real clear-cut number one, they've got three guys up there, and it's James Hagens, Matthew Schaefer, and Michael Misa. And of course, I'm watching on mute. I can't hear what they're saying, but familiar. I was just going to mention, Pike. You got me. I was going to say,
where did Michael Misa play this year?
He played at Saginaw. He played with the Saginaw Spirit.
The Saginaw Spirit. I forget who else plays there.
Well, I know Cole
some kind of defenseman. I forget his name.
Oh, I think I think the guy you're alluding to won't play there much longer. I think he maybe has played his final game there. But you are right. Zane Parekh, teammate of Michael Misa's. Wouldn't it be great to unite those two? Probably a Pike dream, but we'll see. And it looks like we're about to start with the drawing. I was going to make a point about Luke Misa, but yeah, no, we'll get to that after the drawing. It's time to sort of lean in a little bit and see exactly what's going to happen. Looks like the Ernst & Young folks.
Before you get into the nuts and bolts, the kind of a cool thing. So Dustin Wolf, as a finalist for the Calder Memorial Trophy as the league's top rookie. It's the 10th time in franchise history a Flames player has been a finalist for the award. No Flame has won the Calder since the great Sergei Makarov won it as 31 or 32 years old in 89-90, prompting the NHL to put in the you have to be 26 years of age or younger rule, affectionately known to the NHL offices as the Makarov rule. So we'll see if Wolf can break that trend a bit.
All right. So just a quick segue, Pike, we are going to start on what we're going to call throughout the show Mike's Trivia. And I'm going to hit you with your first question right now. You say the Flames haven't won the Calder Trophy. Flame hasn't won the Calder Trophy since 1990. When was the last time the Flames organization won the Calder Cup?
The American Hockey League Championship?
That's right, the Calder Cup. This is a prospect show after all.
That was 2001, the St. John Flames with that awesome dragon logo.
2001, the St. John Flames. And their goaltender, Levante Zuper.
You know what Flames draft choice helped drive that team to victory? Steve
Rico
Bajan.
Fata. Oh, well, Rico Fata too. I mean, he was part of it.
I know Steve Bajan had a longer career, so I'm going to say it's the Steve Bajan St. John Flames. But didn't Marty Murray on that team too?
I think he was. And you can go on Hockey Reference and look this up. I believe Steve Bajan is the only player in Flames history to wear 5 different jersey numbers with them. All right, here we go.
3 in the same year.
Yeah, 3 in the same year, and then he wore 25 and 26.
Joel Bouchard also did that. Joel Bouchard was up 3 times in the same year, and so they assigned his number, and then someone got traded to the team and took his number, so he got another number, and then he got sent down again. They came back up a third time. Bajan, the same thing happened to him.
It happens all the time. 5 seconds until the first ball is pulled here in the 25 NHL Draft Lottery, and it is number 7. The Flames have no chance. The Flames have no chance to win the draft lottery. The first draw.
Well, the Flames are going to be. The Flames will not be drafting 1.
They will not be drafting 1, and they will not be drafting 6 at least.
They do have a fun graphic that shows only the Flames crossed out. That's kind of a nice touch. Flames crossed out.
Isn't that something? Yeah, that was the only number, I think, that if they had been drawn, they would have automatically gone out.
It'd be funnier if there was like an inset video of just Craig Conroy flipping a chair or something and walking off.
That is hilarious. That is hilarious. I mean, what was I saying, Pike?
All right. What's the next number? Just watch the Flames get every number except for 1.
That is really funny. That is. I'm sorry. Okay, 5 more seconds until ball number 2. I should have known. Here we go. It looks like it is number 11. Ball number 11, which let's see here. Let's see how that affects everything. Okay, the Sharks are up to 24%. They are up to almost a quarter here, and 5 teams have been eliminated: Detroit, Columbus, Utah, Vancouver, and Calgary. Boy, this is actually really cool. I like this a lot. My adrenaline is way up. This is super cool.
I like the graphics. They're doing a nice job at this.
This is really cool. All right, ball number 3. I mean, I don't know. Part of me kind of wants to see the Sharks, but at the same time, I don't.
Can you imagine that team with the 1 or 2 better defensemen? Like they've got the framework for a really fun team.
Like, but you forget how dominant that Sharks team was. But at the same time, they were always such a paper tiger because they always would lose early in the playoffs, except that one year. Ball number 3 is number 12. And had the Flames' first one been number 5, had the first ball been number 5, the Flames would be in a really good spot. But now the Sharks' odds have plummeted. And Pittsburgh, oh no, Pittsburgh at 18%. Can you imagine?
Islanders, Chicago, Philadelphia, all at 18.2.
Can you imagine if the Pittsburgh Penguins win this?
That would be. Can you imagine if the Islanders win this?
Wow. And they're showing which balls they need to win.
This is great television. This is
awesome. This is way better.
I know how the NHL has brought criticism upon itself, and very, very rightly so at different points. This is a really cool way of conducting this event.
This is super cool. I'm all for this. All right, so they're probably going to hold on to it. Yeah, we're going to commercial. Oh my God.
We got to watch Matthew Tkachuk walk in slow motion, hair billowing in the wind.
Now, remember, folks, the Flames aren't done. There is a second draw that will happen, and if they win that draw, it will be the exact same result had they won the first draw. They'll move up 10 spots. But it's, wow. Can you imagine that? That is out on the first ball, the only team out on the first ball. I mean, come on. That's really funny. Pike, we were going to talk about Luke Misa. Let's talk about Luke Misa while we're at commercial, because
Luke Misa. So here's the cool thing. So long time ago, kids, the Calgary Flames started embracing a strategy, and I'm gonna say it's probably a Jordan Siglet thing, called screw it, just draft a goalie late every year. Maybe they'll turn out fine. Case in point, the gentleman who finished as one of the 3 finalists for the Calder Trophy this year, was a guy they drafted 214th overall. So the Flames have a goaltender in the 7th round who's one of the top 3 rookies of the year, probably one of the top 10 goaltenders in the NHL. So it's a good strategy. And our colleague and dear friend Kent Wilson is here, and Kent Wilson knows a thing or two about drafting goalies early because he doesn't want anyone to do it. The Flames got another goalie late in the 01 draft, Arseny Sergeyev, out of the amazingly named Shreveport Mudbugs of the North American Hockey League.
NAHL.
The NAHL. And so he progressed on. He went to the USHL, was goalie of the year, went to the NCAA for 2 years. He was sort of in a quasi tandem at UConn. I'm biased. I like this goaltender, and I thought he probably could have played a bit more. It was one of those cases where, he had a couple bad games as a freshman and then sort of loses the net. Couple bad games as a sophomore, loses the net again. And Penn State came a call and said, "Hey, want to come play here? We need a goalie, and we think you're pretty good." And they played the hell out of him, and he got them to the national semifinal. So the Flames, I would say, know Penn State fairly well. Simon Mack, who played a handful of games with the Wranglers at the end of the year and showed really well, came from Penn State. Sergeyev, who just signed his ELC, came from Penn State. They like Penn State. And so Penn State will be the new home of Luke Misa for at least the next year. And it is continuing a trend of, this is, I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the 3rd 2024 selection by the Flames who has committed to the NCAA. Eric Jameson's going to Denver, Henry Muse is going to Michigan, and Luke Misa is going to Penn State. And so if you are not a guy, let's pick on some guys. If you're not an Andrew Basha, who is an older birthday, physically mature, seems like he plays a pro style game already, and hopefully he doesn't, hopefully his injuries are behind him. If you're not him, or Matt Vegridden, who has the ability to play in the AHL as a 19 because of where he was drafted from, if you're sort of one of those later on guys and you're like, maybe I'll need a little bit more seasoning, maybe I'm a little bit small, maybe I'm a little bit raw, maybe I just need to, keep, if there's an intermediary point between being thrown in against men in the NHL or the AHL or staying in junior where there's nothing left for me to do, the NCAA might be a good spot for some guys. So yeah, it's Penn State could be a fun team next year. Aiden Fink, Calgary kid, still playing at Penn State next year.
I was going to say, Penn State's got a lot of former Brooks Bandits because Nathan Free is going there as well. It's going to be a crazy team. Kent, welcome on the show. Our buddy Kent Wilson has joined us just in time for the final ball to be drawn here in draw 1 of the draft lottery. So the Flames still have a chance, but not right now. The Pittsburgh Penguins could pick first overall, Kent. They have an 18% chance. The New York Islanders 2-2. And here we go. Kent, your initial thoughts.
Well, I'm sure San Jose will be pretty choked if that happens, but Buffalo, some of these other teams, but
no kidding. I mean, how many times do the Penguins need this? Here we go. Pick 13. Who is that? The 13 ball. That is, who are they going to bring up here? Let's see it. They're not even showing it on the TV. I mean, I'm muted. I can't see it. We got some people.
I believe it's the New York Islanders.
Really? Let's see. Oh my goodness. New York Islanders will pick first overall in the 2025 NHL draft. Their first time doing so since they picked John Tavares. And wouldn't a guy like Michael Misa look pretty good on Long Island? I mean,
in those jerseys,
they need all the help they can get.
Wow. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that absolutely remarkable? Immediately after they lose Lou Lamoriello, too. Wow.
I forget, what were their odds? Like 3.5% or something ridiculous?
Terrible. Not much better than the Flames. Not much at all.
They almost made the playoffs. So
they almost made the playoffs.
The Islanders had 3.5%.
How many times? Crazy. So since 2017, I believe, we have seen teams located on Long Island or on Manhattan Island or in New Jersey pick first overall 4 times. And we've seen them win the lottery, I think, 5 times or 6 times now. Because I think the Devils have won it 3 times.
Conspiracy theory to me. Yeah.
The Devils have won it 3 times.
The Isles were allocated 10th overall pre-lottery, so they jump up 9 spots.
Well, you think because the Devils got Nico Hischier, and the Devils got Jack Hughes at 1, and they got Simon Nemitz at 2. So they have gotten 3 of those. Then the Rangers got Lafreniere and Kakko, and then now the Islanders are in on the action. I mean, I'll admit, as a team that has always been kind of overlooked a little bit in that group, it's cool to see the Islanders get it. But wow, isn't that something?
Number 1.
I think the Flames do have some combos for that.
The Flames have, I think, 1 or 2 combos with 1 in them.
Wow, isn't that something? Just one. So the Flames need 5. The Flames need 5, 9, and 12. Their odds aren't very good, but we'll see what happens here. They never are. They never are. That's part of the problem.
Their odds are good. They're still not good.
No,
that's true.
I mean,
all right, here comes the second one. This is riveting TV. Kent, what do you think of this presentation, by the way?
Well, I'm just looking at your 2 faces, so I mean,
it's 5. It's 5. 1 5. Here we go.
Still alive.
Oh, my ring light just fell down. I'm getting too excited. All right, their odds can't be that bad now.
9 and 12 are the ones they need to keep this alive.
I can't believe how excited I am about this. Like, this is, I mean, you need Lanny and Iggy. That's the thing. Reese just said it in the chat. Wow, isn't this something? They've got a chance to move up to pick 6. What's the next one going to be? I think it's coming. It is 12. Oh, they need 1 more. They need 1 more ball.
So they just need 9. If they get 9,
they just need 9.
So are they going to please show us the big board, guys? I don't need to see Kevin Weeks and Sam Cosentino. I need odds, damn it. I need odds.
You don't like Sam Cosentino? Come on.
He says he doesn't need to
Kevin
see
Weeks.
Sam Cosentino.
I love Kevin Weeks. I'm not used to seeing more than just this part of Kevin Weeks, though.
Will it be picked? Come on. Do it just this once. Just this once. I'm on pins and needles, man. Flames have a 9%
I prefer the McKenna lottery myself, but I'll take this one.
Screw it. Take both.
This is all the lottery luck they'll ever get.
9%. Yeah. Here we go. 9%. I don't believe, unfortunately, but we'll see.
No,
I don't believe, but they need number 9. Are they the only team up there that has number 9 retired? I think it's them in Boston. Boston has it for Johnny Busick, I think.
Boston is every number retired.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
They've been around for a while.
This is too much. Too much.
Are we going to do this?
30 seconds? Oh, come on.
This is riveting. This is amazing television.
I can't believe this. This is incredible.
Well, who are you guys cheering for in the second round while we wait for the 30-second clock to tick down?
Last year there was a big nationwide advertising campaign that really made up my mind on this. I'd like to see the Oilers, I think. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Part of me wants the Jets to go on a run because I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Well, but we're supposed to put aside our differences and cheer for our rivals. It is number 3.
Oh,
Chicago.
Number 3.
San Jose.
It's number 3.
Flames lose on the last ball again.
They should cheer for the Oilers. Yeah. The Sharks. Who cares?
Sharks do.
9 times.
Mike, there are some people in the Sharks organization that have been nothing but nice to you, and they're going to remember this.
It's true. Brandon Weiss, you're a good man. This is, man. So the Flames give up their first round pick. Utah moves to 4. What?
There you go.
What? No, Utah won.
Oh,
I thought it was the Sharks. Oh, it's Utah.
Or Sharks.
Oh, man.
So
So
Utah
the Sharks
moves all the way
stay
up.
at 2. Utah moves up to 4. Wow. Rigged. It's rigged.
Are they going to pick another big Russian there?
Yeah.
You think, Mike?
Wow. Okay, so the Sharks get it 2, and Utah moves up to 4. Wow, that is a crushing blow for my anti-Utah takes. Oof. I don't know what to think about that. Ugh. Flames were 1 ball away. Second year in a row, I think, right, Pike?
Or third. They had a few last year. And guys, let's just have a moment of silence for the first time since August 2022, probably earlier than that. The Flames no longer have any first-round picks tied up with trade conditions. Actually, I don't think they have any picks whatsoever currently tied up with trade conditions.
That's remarkable.
They're now
Lots of time
unencumbered.
Wow.
You can hear
I am
the sound you're hearing right now is Craig Conroy going to the whiteboard in his room or in his office and just wiping away all the trade conditions, going, don't got to worry about them no more.
All right, Pike, we're going to go back to the well here and do some more Flames trivia with Mike. I'm going to let both of you answer these questions. First come, first serve, you and Kent. How many times have Flames ever won the draft lottery?
Never.
0. It is 0 times. Come on. They've never won the draft lottery. What is the highest the Flames have ever picked in the NHL draft? The Calgary Flames.
4.
4. That's right. Come on, Pike. You can answer these two.
Yeah, he knows all this.
Outside of the time the Flames picked 4th overall when they picked Sam Bennett in 2014, how many times they ever picked in the top 5?
2. Are we talking Atlanta or just Calgary?
I'm talking just Calgary.
0.
0. That's right. The Flames have
Yeah,
never had
you
another top 5
just
pick.
asked how many times have they what have they what were the highest they drafted, and then you asked a follow-up.
I should have known. I should have known not to ask these to a pedant in Ryan Pike. Pike, just show off for us. Who was the Flames' highest pick in franchise history, and how long ago was it?
Highest pick?
Yeah, it was Tom Lysiak, wasn't it?
Jacques Richard and Tom Lysiak in 73-74. Or 72 and 73. So they flipped a coin. So at the expansion draft in 72, coincidentally, their expansion cousins are dear pals, the New York Islanders. They flipped a coin. There was 2 drafts that went on. There was the expansion draft and the entry draft. They flipped a coin, and if you won the coin toss, you got to choose between you can pick first in the expansion draft or the entry draft. The Flames went for the first pick in the expansion draft. The Islanders got the first pick in the entry draft. So
you'd never see that today.
The Islanders in 72, they picked Billy Harris from the Toronto Marlboros, and the Flames got Jacques Richard, who had a pretty good career. Almost 600 games. He's pretty good. But I would argue the Flames got better at drafting after that first year, but they were decent. They did okay.
Can you imagine if that happened today, where you had 2 teams that entered
overall?
First overall in the which one do you want? You want the first overall pick in the expansion draft or the entry draft? I don't know. I'd rather first dibs at picking Marc-Andre Fleury, or what do you want? First dibs at picking whoever is number 1 overall in the entry.
Yeah,
like come on, that would never happen today. Wow, that's crazy. Well, let's keep this show chugging along a little bit, because we're not just here to talk about the stupid ping pong balls. I'm upset. I'm angry. But what you going to say something, Pike?
I'm just curious. Okay, so now we know the Flames are allocated 16th, which is going to Montreal to close out that trade. Long live the trade. The trade is dead. But the Flames will actually select for the first time at 18th overall, which is, it's in the middle of, it's pretty much right in the middle of the draft. They'll also get the Florida Panthers first round pick, which if Florida is eliminated in this round, if you have friends, you're going to be conflicted. If you want to cheer for the Flames to have an earlier pick, cheer for Florida. Actually, cheer for the Leafs, because if the Leafs win this round, the Flames will get Florida's pick, and it'll be 22nd. If Florida progresses past this, then their pick goes into the last 4 picks of the first round. So it'll rattle around somewhere between 29th and 32nd, depending on how long Florida goes. So I know everyone wants to see Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett happy, and so it might hurt your very soul to cheer for the Buds. But if you're a draft honk and you want whatever we're calling this process the Flames are going through, I like to call it the reverb, because I don't know, you can insert whatever verb you want in there to describe what they're doing. If you want things to progress and you're an optimist, maybe it might have to, suck it up and cheer for the Leafs. But if you're cheering for chaos, I'm right here with you. I love chaos.
I just want to chime in quickly and say one thing. The Arizona Coyotes existed for 28 years, and I would say that if that team had ever won the draft lottery once, they would have had a better chance of building a fan base. They never win it once in their entire existence. And then the first year after they move, Utah wins it and moves up 10 spots to 4. Boy, isn't that just a punch in the butt for a team that had a chance at both McDavid and Eichel. They had a chance at McDavid and Eichel, and they were left with Dylan Strome in 2015 when the Oilers leapfrogged both teams, Buffalo and Arizona, to pick number 1. Boy, if you're a hockey fan in the desert, and I know a few of them, they're not happy with Utah finally getting that first lottery win in their first try. Isn't that something? Boy, oh boy. So let's talk a little bit about some other stuff because Kent, we mentioned off the top, we're going to make this a bit of a regular thing throughout the summer. And I haven't even mentioned Platinum Mitsubishi yet. What am I even doing? Platinum Mitsubishi, the title sponsor of our new show, The Back Burner, which is going to be awesome. You got Barn Burner, you got Afterburner, but what better to talk about in the summer than the prospects? Because, fans love to talk about what the future holds, all the hope that is in the system. And of course, with everything going on in terms of the rebuild or the retool or whatever you want to call it, there's so much more at stake when it comes to discussing these players who could shape the Flames for years to come, when things might actually mean something. Right now, things are sort of in the ether. The Flames are picking 16th or they're picking 18th. They are missing the playoffs by 1 point. They're not quite there. Well, these are the guys who might actually shape things down the road. And Platinum Mitsubishi is the proud sponsor of this brand new show, The Back Burner. And Ken, we're talking a little bit off the top about, the Flames prospects, some of the guys who have made some noise recently. Of course, Luke Misa being one of them, Matt Coronado, not exactly a prospect anymore, just signing his big 7-year, $6.5 million AAV contract. A year ago, he would have been a topic of conversation on this show. Pike brought up something interesting earlier, though, and the Flames picked 10 players in the 2024 NHL draft. They picked 10 players. And there's a quick little breakdown that I want to give now to the folks watching of where these 10 players stand, because they can be broken down into 3 or 4 different groups. The first 4 players they drafted in 2024, Parek, Gridin, Basha, and Battaglia, all now under contract. They are all signed with the organization. Beyond that, they have 3 players, as Pike was mentioning, who are juniors who are heading to college. So they have Eric Jameson, they have Luke Misa now, and Henry Muse. And then they have 2 players who I would classify as unsigned juniors. And they're juniors in different senses. They are Hunter Lang and Kirill Zarubin, who are both junior players on other sides of the world. And then they have Trevor Hoskin, who is still in college and who is transferring. I believe, correct me, he went from Niagara to Pike.
The Merrimack College. And
that's right.
Put some respect on Trevor Hoskin's name, young man. He is the reigning Atlantic Hockey America Rookie of the Year.
That's right.
He was one of the highest scoring freshmen. He was actually, I think, the highest scoring freshman in all of NCAA hockey. That's
right. So I want to put this out to you now, because we've seen the Flames had an extraordinary draft in 2024. I think we all share this opinion. They did an extremely good job.
Our pal Byron Bader declared it one of the best drafts in his model, in probably one of the best ones in the model's history.
Well, you look at it, and I think, it's way too early to make any proclamations or do any redrafts, but based on how players they picked did in 2024-25, I think if you were to put them all in a machine today and sort of say, spit out who is doing the best out of these all 220-ish players, I think you could safely say the Flames might have 5 players or 6 players in the top 50 of that group. In terms of just, Parek obviously had an amazing year. Gridin, Basha obviously was hurt, but Battaglia more than made up for it. He was remarkable in his own way. Now the Flames are in a bit of a predicament because they don't have their own first round pick this year. And granted, it would have been pick 16, but they still need to find more ways to amass draft capital. So now that we know where they're at, they have pick number 18 and they have pick, either 22 or 29, what have you. We know they have 2 firsts and they didn't win the lottery, so they're not going any higher. How, and I'm going to start with you, Ken, how do you think the Flames should move forward from here between today and June 25th or whenever the 2025 NHL draft is in Los Angeles?
Well, they're still kind of in a situation where there's so much of their parent roster is in, I'll call the U29 cohort, right? Players over 29 who are veterans, who aren't, probable to get better or rather expensive, are going to be, that cohort is going to suffer through attrition over the next 5 years, right? Guys are going to retire, guys are going to get hurt, guys are going to get older, and maybe in the Anderson case, guys are going to leave. So for me, I would be reinvesting that cohort. Not all of it, right? You can't skim that entire thing. You got to ice a team, and you want to maintain some level of leadership and culture in the room. But how can they reinvest some of those assets back into the U19 cohort, which is like Perek and all the guys we're talking about now? So I would be calling some guys, be knocking on some doors, seeing what the value of some of my veterans are out there.
Well, and Pike, I have a question for you. So the Flames made 2 first-round picks last year. It was only, I believe, I want to say it's only the second time in team history they've ever done that. Their first was 2013 when they made 3 first-round picks. They got Monahan, Klimchuk. I believe it's only the second. Well, now they have 2 first-round picks this year and next year. But I want to get a take from you. What do you think is the most likely outcome, just based on what you think, that the Flames make 1 first-round pick this year, that they make 2 first-round picks this year, or they make 3 first-round picks this year? Which do you think is the most likely outcome? And think of it, because there's possibility. What if they trade up? What if they do all sorts of different things? What if they move one of those picks for a now player? What do you think happens?
They make 2 picks this year. 2 first-round picks this year.
And how do you think it plays out?
I think they pick at 18 and 20, whatever.
Nothing changes.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. So the perception in the scouting community, and granted, I'm going off of the word of people who spend a lot more times in junior rinks than I have, is, there's the well-defined top group, maybe 1 to 3 to 4 players, depending on how well you see those guys. And then there's a drop-off around 7 and 8, and at which point there's pretty much a lot of scouts I talk to are kind of, I want to say indifferent, but they have a lot of different perspectives between the guys ranked 9th and probably close to up into the mid to late 20s. So you could see some movement, but I would also suggest that, if you're, say, remember the year the Flames got, they traded down twice in 2020 and got Connor Zary. I think it kind of feels in terms of the structure of the first round, kind of like that. Maybe not exactly like that, but if you have your list, the quality of player you're getting at 18 isn't all that much different than 10, 12, 14. And so would you, if you're the Flames and you're in, let's be honest, year 2 of, like, they basically, you waved the white flag at the trade deadline last year. Like, you purposely depleted the lineup because you were going to go in another direction. So that's what I call, this is whatever we're calling the process. That's when you began it. When you actively sent guys out for futures. And so we're in year 1 of this process, and they had 10 players in last year's draft. And you look at the depth they got last year and you go, okay, if 3 or 4 or 5 of these guys turn into anything as pros, you're probably pretty happy. Okay, good. But this is 1 year. And so you want to have ideally 1 or 2 more of these, to the point where, like Kent was mentioning, the idea that, there's still a little bit of the older cohort still holds serve on the roster right now. And so I don't think they're in any hurry to kick anybody out the door, but I'll say this. So, this summer we're going to be hearing and speaking a lot about Rasmus Anderson's future. And I would suggest that the Rasmus Anderson situation is sort of, you could make some parallels to how it was with Jacob Markstrom last summer, where, okay, do you need to trade Jacob Markstrom? Not necessarily, but were you at a point where you have someone waiting in the wings in the form of a Dustin Wolf who's done everything he can at the lower level and has probably earned a chance to, sink or swim at the NHL level. And you're in a position where you can turn Markstrom into assets. And so if you're the Flames this summer, it's not Markstrom, it's Anderson. And maybe in another summer or two, it's Blake Coleman. It's, some of these other older guys. And so I don't think the Flames are in any hurry to push guys out the door. I think they really value what some of their older players, that 29 plus, 30 plus cohort, these are the guys that wanted to be here. They had the opportunity to ask out last summer when, all the changes were happening. And these are the guys that wanted to stay. And so I think there's a lot of goodwill towards those guys because they were a big part of how this season went. And if you look at how well, Ball, Coronado, Zari, Wolf, some of these other guys are going to be coming in next year, how well they adapted. I don't think these guys can get enough credit for it because, you need to have an environment where guys can come in and not be afraid to do their own thing. I think the best compliment I can give to Matt Coronado this year was Matt Coronado did not look like a guy in a second-year pro. He looked like a guy he looked like, in the Chicago Steel and Junior. He looked confident. And I think they created an environment where guys could be confident. So I don't think they're in a hurry to move guys out, but I think you want to create a situation where, okay, you have that push from above where this year it was Wolf. Okay, next year, do you have someone that could maybe come in and maybe you want to open up a space for Zane Perek, for example, or in a year, hell, maybe even Ilya Solovyov next year, but in a year or two, you have other guys pushing up. So I think you want to create an environment with the Wranglers where guys at the NHL level feel like these kids are knocking on the door, and you want your veterans to feel, you want them to feel good, but you don't want to feel too comfortable. And you also want them to feel like, say, let's be honest, New Jersey was a good landing spot for Jacob Markstrom. Mm-hmm. And so, okay, in the event that they feel like they can't find a mutual understanding on a contract with Rasmus Andersson, I think they'd like to find a nice landing spot for him. And any of these guys who are potentially leaving the organization in the next 2-3 years because younger guys are coming up and because of contractual status is sort of putting a clock on them, I think they want to, turn those guys into futures, send them to places where they can do good things and continue to progress. And also, potentially get a few picks. So, we could see that with Rasmus Andersson as early as this summer. I don't necessarily think that they're going to get a first in this year's draft for in Rasmus Andersson trade because I don't know. It depends what kind of marketplace emerges. But that's what I'm saying. That's a long way of saying I think they get 2 this year because I think they're still in an accumulation phase. I still think they're in, let's make as many damn picks as we can. I think they look at what they did last year and go, okay, we did a lot of smart things last year. Let's do that another couple times, and then let's make these kids force us in some tough decisions.
Well, I look at it, and I mean, I think Rasmus going is likely. I think it's likely, just based on a lot of different factors, and you sort of expounded on a lot of them. And there's to me, it's funny that you say that you don't think Rasmus will go necessarily for a first round pick this year, because the way that I see it, I think firsts this year might be less valuable than next year. I think next year's draft, and it's all hogwash to say that we know anything about the draft because we really don't. But everybody seems to think the 26 picks are a more valuable currency than 25s. So I don't know. I think it's all very interesting. But I do think Rasmus has the attributes necessary to warrant a first. I think he is similar to other defensemen who have warranted and brought firsts. I think back to when Jacob Chychrun was traded to Ottawa, and everybody was super down on the return that the Yotes got at the time, but it ended up being an amazing return, the 12th overall pick and 2 seconds. Now, you're never going to get that for Rasmus right now after the year that he had. And granted, Chychrun had a year and a deadline left on that contract. He basically had a year and a half, whereas Rasmus only has 1. But I don't know. I sure like that possibility. Now, there is one player who has really captured the attention, I think, of all 3 of us. Now that we know that the Flames are picking at number 18, or at least that they hold the number 18 overall pick, and while it might be unrealistic to say, and it probably is unrealistic to say that they'll trade into the top 10 or any higher than that, because the cost goes higher and higher with each pick, there is the possibility, I think it's a very real possibility, that the Flames end up picking somebody in their own backyard with the number 18 pick. And Pike, I already know you know who I'm talking about. I think Kent does as well. But I think we got to talk about Ben Kindle, because this guy has been unbelievable. He's been playing for the Calgary Hitmen this season. He's at the U18s right now. He's, really
the U18s just finished. They won gold.
Well, all right. Well, there you go. He's no longer playing there, but he was. And he has absolutely skyrocketed his stock, although we say that on the public side of things, and the NHL operates very differently when it comes to forwards who are 5'10", as we have seen before. So, the thought of a guy who is a natural center, but might be a winger in the NHL, but who had 99 points in 65 games with the Hitmen this year, being potentially available for the Flames at 18, to me, it reminds me of Connor Zary. When, there were certain people who said Connor Zary had the makings of a top 10 pick. Of course, Zary was a bit bigger. Kindle's a little guy. But this is a guy, Kent, who I know profiles extremely well in a lot of different models. And Pike is a guy who is a dog on a bone when you watch him. Kent, we'll talk a little bit about Kindle, but who are some other guys who have sort of stood out to you as potential interesting picks?
Yeah, he's the big one for me. Carter Bear. I'm wondering if he's going to drop after his injury. He had some talk about being a top 10 pick potentially this year. And you never really know with injuries. Sometimes a scout can fall in love and not worry about that. But sometimes, you can see a guy fall 10, 20 spots. And he's a guy I've had my eye on for a while.
Kent, is there anybody in particular who you would maybe want the Flames to shy away from in this year's draft? Not to say that the certain players don't have the pedigree to be first round picks, but there's certain archetypes that are maybe a little bit more prone to certain flaws emerging, or what I'm setting up.
Is this Roger McQueen bait? I think it is.
you know what I'm setting up.
Yeah.
Kent's not a big Roger McQueen fan, Pike.
He doesn't, besides the back injury, which sounds almost degenerative, which is bad news, and I actually hope the best for the player. He profiles like a Lawson Krause to me, right? Just someone who's got that projectable frame, can push around kids because he's so big. And then, scouts fall in love and the numbers aren't really there. So it's just, I usually try to avoid those guys. At 18 or 20 something, it's less of an issue. It's usually when you're in the top 10. You should not be taking a Lawson Krause. But if a Ben Kindle's around, please don't take. I wouldn't take Roger McQueen, period, because of the injury issue. But it's usually that archetype who's, he's 6'4" and he's 220 and he's pushing kids around and junior. And then it's like, he doesn't have the numbers, so I don't really care.
Only 1 year ago did Caden Lindstrom go at number 4, and a player who looks, like a very talented player, but missed his entire draft plus 1 season with a similar type of thing that happened to him. And of course, we wish him the best as well, but just a huge risk. Pike, what are you thinking?
Well, there's an Ellis bomb, guys. Over at Daily Faceoff, our dear friend Stephen Ellis has published a full 32 player mock draft following the lottery. And so I'm going to read 2 names for you guys.
Please do.
At 18th overall, the Calgary Flames via the New Jersey Devils select Ben Kindle from the Calgary Hitmen. And at 22nd overall, he has the Flames with the Florida pick, going back to the Western League and picking up Braden Coots from the Seattle Thunderbirds. Nice. The Flames, let's be honest, they've had, if you look historically, they've had a lot of success drafting from 2 leagues, the Western League and the Ontario League. Inside baseball, but they're 2, I think, associate head scouts of amateur scouting used to be their area scouts for the Western League and the OHL. So the guys who were successful at finding players got promoted to help be in charge of finding players. And if you look at the drafting they've done in the last few years, I mean, Connor Zary, good Western League kid, basically was drafted in this kind of a range. They've had a lot of success. I'll single out even just for a late round guy from Seattle, Lucas Siona, who's really, this year become a pretty nice little role player for the Calgary Wranglers this year. And teammates love him, and the opposition absolutely freaking hates the kid. So he's doing some good things down there. So the Flames know that division quite well. They've drafted a lot of guys from that particular division of the Western League. So obviously, whoever their area scout is on the Western Conference of the Western League is earning their pay. And, I think looking at these names, I go, yeah, that sounds right. disclosure, I got a text about this mock draft this morning with a couple names, and I went, that sounds right. And yeah, I still feel that way. I think these, two guys that, can play center. Kindle has played a mix of right wing and center. He's mostly been center this year. He has been moved to the wing at times, but if you're looking at, outside of Kindle's size, he's listed at 5'10", 170 something. He ain't big, but as we've learned with diminutive National Hockey League goaltender Dustin Wolf, if you can play, I don't think it really matters outside. And I'd say Ben Kindle is sort of the corollary of the Roger McQueen, where Roger McQueen's got the NHL body, but he's hurt and hasn't really put up numbers this year because he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Whereas Ben Kindle may not have the quote unquote NHL body, but when you watch the Hitman, Jesus, like he's a play driver, and there's small players that play small, like perimeter players, guys that sort of whiz around the outside. Bless his heart, I love Matthew Phillips as a hockey player.
I knew you were going to say
Phillips was a guy that had to use his speed in order to avoid getting squished. So he had to zip around the outside and create from the outside. And it sort of limited him at higher levels because at higher levels, big bodies clog up the middle of the ice. And Kindle will have to deal with that at some point. But his play style in the Western League is, I think I can get through there. And he just barrels through. And he's one of those guys where, he's going to have to add some muscle to his frame in order to keep doing that. But it's working so far. 99 points this year. Can't really complain about that.
Well, the other thing I want to mention, Pike, and we'll cut this short a little bit here, but in a couple minutes. But this year's draft is kind of interesting in that I think there is a higher than usual allotment of guys who are natural centers who might turn into wingers, but you don't really know that for sure. And those are the guys who, when I look back at previous drafts, I call them kind of the Barzels. You look at them and they're the guys who are projected to go in the teens. They're a little bit smaller. But if they pan out, they're really something. And this year's got a few potential Barzels who I see as being that archetype. And if they don't work out well, the hope is maybe you've pulled a Connor Zary type or a Jacob Pelche type or whatnot. But, I look at the Cole Reshneys in this draft and of course, Kindle, who we've mentioned already. Reshny, I watched his brother, Austin, with the Okotoks Oilers a couple of years ago. And he was very much a lunch pail type player, not exactly Cole's cup of tea. Cole is a real slick player, but on the smaller side, whereas Austin was a bigger guy. But, I see there's a lot of guys. Coots is an interesting poll by Steven because his Seattle team, we've seen some really strong Seattle teams in the past. This was not necessarily the same level of Seattle team that we've seen. It was basically Coots and Radim Murtka, and that's it. And so the fact that Coots got to a point a game is quite impressive, because he was really limited in what he could do. So certainly interesting. I mean, we didn't even talk about all the different guys. Brady Martin's another guy who is a big center who I think
he's going to go before 18. Yeah. Before 18. He's
pushing into the top 10 now.
I'll name drop someone from the queue, Bill Zonin, who plays center in the wing. If I've watched a bunch of his games this year, he's big, he's lanky, he has the type of frame where, he moves around really well, but he looks like you could put like 15 pounds of muscle on him without really hurting his speed. And, if you're the Flames, you got 2 picks in this back half of the first round. Then you got a pick in the second, pick in the third. You have the ability to, when you have multiple picks, do some creative things and sort of, you can gamble. Like case in point, remember that year that Oliver Shillington just tumbled down the draft rankings.
Yep.
And the Flames went for the quote unquote safe hockey pick with their first second rounder when they got Rasmus Anderson. Turned out to be a pretty good pick. But, because they had multiple picks that year, they had the ability to move up to roll the dice on Oliver Shillington. And, second rounders are never a sure thing. So that's just the fact that they had the wherewithal to do that. They got a lot of good games out of Shillington. Is pretty good. And I think this is the kind of draft where, because there's the consensus in the top handful of guys and then layers of chaos beneath.
Yep.
As much as I'm thinking in the first round, you might not want to expend resources to move up, because I'm not sure if there's going to be a huge difference between a lot of the guys in that round. when you get later on, I mean, they have a lot of draft capital over the next few years that they can do some interesting things with, especially if potentially they make some roster changes between now and June 27th and the first round is, Mike. You were off by 2 days.
Absolutely. Nobody's perfect. A couple quick topics I want to touch upon just before we wrap up here. But before we get to them, I just want to briefly say I mentioned Brady Martin. No chance he is getting past the Pittsburgh Penguins because he's a Sioux Greyhound and exactly what they need. So, I mean, a big center who I know Jay Fresh had that thing out today, the trying to quantify who does the most stuff.
While they're on the ice, yeah.
But it was kind of a cool little thing. And one of the OHL guys who tracks stuff sort of applied that same metric to the OHL or to the CHL. I know Brady Martin ranked first and Ben Kindle ranked second.
Number 2.
Which is something that was pretty interesting. The other thing that I just wanted to mention quickly. So I've seen some people mention Joe Aginla in the chat. Joe Aginla is not eligible for this year's draft. He is too young. He's too young. Yeah. Eligible for the 26th draft, in which he will probably be a high pick. He's
going to be one of the youngest guys available in that draft too. He's an August birthday, isn't he?
August 2008. I remember August 2008, and I'm, this is getting crazy for me. But yeah, so Joe Aginla had 9 goals and 16 points in 61 games with the Oil Kings this year as a 16-year-old, which is pretty good for a 16-year-old. Very respectable. Profiling sort of like Tej did at this time in his development, and Tej ended up really skyrocketing from being, sort of projected as a borderline first-round guy going into his draft year to being the 6th overall pick by the Utahns. So that'll be kind of interesting to watch.
Young man, they're called the Mammoth in this household.
I don't acknowledge that team. So we're gonna move on. 2 more quick topics I want to talk about. We haven't even talked about really the New York Islanders that much, and I just want to mention them very briefly here because they have the 1st overall pick, which is crazy. It hasn't happened in 15 years since John Tavares. But James Higgins was born on Long Island. And there's been a lot of talk that Higgins is maybe not the consensus number 1 guy. The people like Matthew Schaefer more, people like Michael Misa more. Higgins has sort of slipped in some perceptions recently. Do we see the first time in a couple decades a team trades down this year? Because the New York Islanders, with how much help they need, because Lord knows they need everything on Long Island. We don't even know what's going to happen with Matt Barzal and Noah Dobson, 2 players who are obviously very good players, but maybe not the core pieces they need. What's going to happen there? Could we see the Islanders move down a couple spots to maybe try and pick up some extra stuff? Wouldn't that be interesting?
No.
I guess it depends on any of the partners, right? Like, is anyone desperate enough to move up to 1 in this draft?
I wonder if we see Utah try to make a move for Matthew Schaefer. That's the only thing that stands out to me, because Utah would love that kind of player. And they have so many picks from when they were in Arizona and they were sort of trading to get guys. To me, right away, that's the first thing I think of. And I don't want to necessarily call my shot or anything, but I could totally see Utah and the Islanders saying, okay, you know what? Utah, you want Matthew Schaefer. Islanders, we want James Higgins. He's our local boy. We want him to be the face of the franchise forever. And they bank on Higgins being there at 4, because I think it's entirely possible. I mean, wouldn't that be something? So just some food for thought. I think that would be my one prediction.
Not a bad hot take. I'll take.
Well, you think about it. Like Utah really needs those defensemen. They've got. I mean, we saw they were ravaged this year, and far be it from me to advocate for that team's best interests, but it's their biggest need. And Dmitry Simashev, if he pans out, he's a right shot guy. Matthew Schaefer is kind of what they need. So, just an interesting thought. Now let's wrap this thing up. I want to ask you both one question before we sign off, and I'm going to start with you, Kent, because I think I already know your answer. But Zane Parekh, I think, is the consensus number 1 prospect in the Flames organization. I don't think it's even close. I think he's the number 1 piece in the Flames organization right now, maybe barring Dustin Wolf, but that could be a pretty contentious debate. But if you're not going to include Wolf, you're not going to include Coronado, you're not going to include Connor Zary, the guys who have actually made the NHL, I want to hear it from you, Ken. After Zane Parekh, Who is the best prospect in the Calgary Flames system today?
Yeah, it's a tough question because there's just that number one, and then like 5 or 10 guys you can you can credibly argue are next, right?
Stick your neck out, Ken.
Yeah, I like Muse a lot. Brstevich, you
Muse.
brought up before during our battle. I mean, Battaglia had a really good season, right?
Yeah.
But I heard a dark horse might be Morin, right?
Yes. I love it.
Whenever I hear from scouts who are in the queue, they talk about him being one of the best defensemen in that league right now.
Maybe
he didn't
the best.
Put up like the 70 or 80 points that you'd kind of want from a guy like that, but I've heard he's just fairly dominant. So I'm really looking forward to him playing in the AHL next year.
Easily the best left-handed defense prospect in the Flames system. It's not even close. Pike, I'm curious to hear from you.
Ken, I have a sneaking feeling we're going to see a pairing of Hunter Brstevich and Etienne Morin for the Wranglers next year, and it's just going to be so much fun. That's going to be a blast. I'm going to go local. I really love Andrew Basha. When he got drafted, I just fist pumped. Like, that's just he's a local kid, so it's a feel good story. He's an absolute asshole to play against. And I say that with nothing but love and respect in my heart. There's some guys like I watched a bunch of games with him early last year, and it was scouts would come early in the year to see Cade Lindstrom, and Lindstrom was he was decent, but Lindstrom could skill his way up and down the ice, and because he's big, he can do a lot of things that smaller guys can't. Basha ain't big. He ain't small, but he ain't big. And Basha is the kind of player where when instead of trying to dipsy doodle around the ice, he'd try to barrel through you. And by the end of the first period of the first game I saw, the Hitman defenders were like backing off. They're like, "Oh Jesus, this guy's an asshole. I don't want to go into a corner of this guy. He's gonna knock me around." And he's the kind of guy that I think, is he the most skilled player on this team? He's highly skilled. I don't know if he's the most skilled player, but he's developed a reputation as a really tough competitor, a really, really smart hockey player, a skilled hockey player, but he knows when to dipsy doodle and he knows when to barrel through guys. And if you're on a team that has, Kent always, I know Kent always liked the term functional toughness, where for the Calgary Flames, their big knock for a while has been the big players aren't particularly skilled and the skilled players aren't particularly big. Basha has decent size, a ton of skill, and the willingness to basically just barrel through guys and sort of assert his will on players. I'm kind of disappointed that we don't really have a chance to see him much of him this year, but he's one of those guys where I think if you're the Flames, you're playing the long game, you imagine him first as a very big piece of a Wranglers team that could do some interesting things next year with as many new faces. Honorable mention, Carter King was really good in the limited viewings we got of him this year. They're going to have Etienne Morin. They're going to have Matt Vigradin play next year. Sergayev, Owen Say. Like, there's going to be a very interesting, fresh-faced looking Wranglers team. But I think Bash is the one for Flames fans. Go out of your way to see Andrew Basha the next time you have a chance to see Andrew Basha, because there's a lot of if he did all of this last couple of years while playing through some injuries, and part of the reason why he's been off for so long is just the idea of like, let's get him 100% and then unleash him next year. And they're really high on him, both in Medicine Hat and at the Dome, and there's a lot of excitement to see him at full power, because at not close to full power, he was kicking tires and being a first round pick last year. So
you're right. Well, I remember the show that I think Kent and I were on, and I don't know if you were on it, Pike, but yeah, we both wanted Basha at pick 28, and they got Grid in at 28, and then they get Basha anyway. And it's like, great, that's awesome. I love hearing the Basha praise, because he's gone under the radar for all season long for obvious reasons, and I think he still very much deserves a place in the pantheon. At the end of the day, you didn't even mention another guy who's going to play for the Wranglers next year, Idar Suniev. They're going to have a really interesting group of forwards.
Our friend Johnny Lazarus be mad at us for not mentioning
Yeah.
The UMass kid, Adar Suniev.
You got to mention him.
He was so good last year.
Yeah, he was.
This past season.
My pick for that answer, it changes every day because I think Kent, you nailed it. There's so many guys right on that tier. Hunter Brustevitz is so close to being a very good NHL player, and I think he's going to play more with the Flames next year than people are ready, maybe expecting. I think he's right there. Muse is an excellent answer too. I'm super excited to see how he does at Michigan. I think it's a wonderful spot for him to go in the NCAA. Just an amazing program. My answer today, however, is Jacob Battaglia. I am super excited for him. In fact, I liked him before the Flames got him. We had a fantasy draft before, and I picked him in that fantasy draft in the second round because I saw the potential with this guy because he was playing in Kingston on a team that really didn't do a whole lot, and he was scoring like nobody's business. A ton of goals on sort of like Braden Coots with the Thunderbirds, a guy who was putting up a ton of points and a ton of goals, even more importantly, on a team that didn't score very many. And so it's sort of like what you see with Coronado this year, where he has 24 goals on a team where nobody's scoring. And so that's what really intrigues me about Battaglia. I think he's got all the attributes. So, but yeah, it's a really great pool that they have put together, and they need those extra pieces. We'll see if they get them, and that will be something that we watch for pretty much all spring and all summer long. And we are going to reconvene a number of times on this show, the back burner. We're going to get up some graphics. We're gonna spruce this joint up a little bit. It's not going to always look like this, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I can't thank you, Pike, and you, Kent, enough for joining us on this Monday afternoon and now evening.
My pleasure. Looking forward to getting this going.
Well, we are gonna sign off. Once again, this has been a presentation of Platinum Mitsubishi up at 2720 Barlow Trail Northeast, home of the 2025 Outlander. It's an excellent vehicle, 7 seats, brown leather, and cooled seats, brand new for 2025. And Pike, you would actually love to listen to this very show on those Yamaha speakers that are standard in every single 2025 Outlander. We need to get you in one at some point.
I just really enjoy Mike's explanation of the phrase brown leather. I've
brown
never seen someone
leather.
more excited to tell the world about brown leather.
It is. There's a reason why people put it on their shoes. There's a reason why people make jackets out of it. Now it's there. Belts, absolutely. Now it's there in the cars. 2720 Barlow Trail Northeast. We'll probably do this again in a couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. We'll definitely do it a bunch leading up to the draft. We're going to have some great guests. We'll try and get Steven on, Steven Ellis, and a few other folks who you all are familiar with. Send us messages who you'd like to see on the show. We'll try to get them on. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike T. Gould. You can follow Kent at Kent Wilson and Pike at Ryan N. Pike. And, of course, you can follow us all at Flames Nation, flamesnation.ca. That will pretty much do it. The Flames end up losing the 2025 NHL Draft Lottery. They stay exactly where they were. The New Jersey Devils will give them pick 18. They have given the Montreal Canadiens pick 16. The Utah Hockey Club moves up to pick 4, and the New York Islanders pick number 1. You've been watching The Back Burner, a presentation of Platinum Mitsubishi right here on the Flames Nation Network.